More in general terms, I want to give some examples of how this is happening. So one example that you can see here is on the left side, you can see the current size of Nampula municipality with the orange areas, more or less, the current urban size of the urban area. And then on the right side, you can see the planned areas for urban growth. And you can see that this is covering more or less the whole of the municipality. And so if we look then at how the growth is taking place, we can also see that the municipality itself, where it's planning the expansion areas, is not contiguous to the current urban areas, but actually also outside or far away from the city center. For example, I don't know if you can see, the orange areas at the very southeast or at the very north that are taking place actually far away from the city center, not contiguous to the urban fabric, how it is currently. A second example that I want to expand on is about the ministry guidelines. So there are very elaborate ministry guidelines that are promoting quite rigid ways of organizing the expansion areas. You can see some examples here. And you can then also see how this is being translated by the municipalities. This is an example from Chimoio municipality where you can see that the maps that are being drawn based on these guidelines are actually very much based on blocks of similar plot sizes, to very large extent, very monofunctional, and so this is really like key characteristics of the urban sprawl. And talking about these plot sizes, also what you can see in the expansion areas, official expansion areas, plot sizes are actually very large, especially if you compare them to plot sizes in the regularization zones. And plots are actually often attributed, or there might be more than one plot attributed per family. So that was what the government, or how government might be influencing the urban growth. Looking at the land markets, what we see is that a commoditization of the land market is taking place. So rather than a social asset, more and more the market or land is being seen as an economic asset, even though land formally cannot be sold. But you can see that informally there is a very active and sophisticated land market, and it's not even just informal, but it's actually incorporated in the official system, or it fits into the official system of the land allocation. This, in fact, is affecting the affordability. It's pushing out the poor people from the city center, and it's also affecting women's vulnerability. I'm afraid in the interest of time, I won't have time to draw more on that. And so then the third point, what we also looked at, the third actor are the residents. And so we thought with a large amount of informal growth taking place, it's important to also analyze what choices or what priorities do individuals have towards where they settle. And so what we found is that actually residents' behavior results in both densification and horizontal expansion. One part of it, or how we looked at it, is what residents' preferences are, where they choose to live, and what are their preferred, or what are their priorities. And so one part was, what we found is that the large plot sizes have an influence on where people choose to settle. On the other hand, people also want to live close to the city center, therefore they might compromise on the plot size. Secondly, we thought residential mobility also has an influence on the housing stock. So if you have a high residential mobility, you need to have a larger housing stock. What we found is that there is considerable residential mobility, Again, I will not go into the numbers. And then a last point that I want to make about residence behavior is then what we also looked at, what are people, how do they build? And so what we found is that people really look at building or look at constructing a house as one of their priorities in spending, but due to their economic circumstances, this is a very gradual process, taking often a lot of time, so that you find a lot of vacant land or land where houses are under construction for a very long time.